Alright, hello everybody, and welcome back to Vassals of Kingsgrave for our very special episode on the Disney Plus series Star Wars The Mandalorian, Season 2. We will be covering the first 4 episodes of Season 2, chapters 9, 10, 11, and 12. The 4th episode just aired yesterday, and we will be discussing full spoilers for that. My name is Adam, also known as Drownedsnow, and I will be joined by Zach, Marie, and David. All right, awesome. So we are here today, Season 2, which is 4 episodes, another 9, Chapter 10, Chapter 11, Chapter 12. Quite a bit has happened. The 4th episode just aired yesterday, featuring a lot more cute Baby Yoda than we've gotten in most. Right. That kid was just like he just drank my milkshake, and I'm not gonna do anything.
Don't mess with Baby Yoda. Yeah, I think my reaction to the last episode has kind of been consistent with my feelings on this season so far in general. In so much as I think it's doing a really good job so far of balancing what is clearly like a specific style of storytelling, right, with this sort of episodic kind of adventure of the week thing, with like giving us something each episode that either meaningfully progresses like a character arc or a plot line. So in this case, I really liked them progressing kind of some of the main stuff that we were building up way back at the start of the first season with sort of the like what does this little faction of Imperial forces want to do with Baby Yoda? That was meaningfully progressed in this episode, which was cool to see. And otherwise, like just in general, this show, but this season in particular, the action has been so good. Like the production value of just making Star Wars stuff look cool has been insane for a TV show. So that has been great too.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely getting
the
movie
budget
quality.
definitely got a bump, right?
Yeah, we're definitely getting like movie quality episodes here. You know, if you put 3 of these together, that could have been a movie.
Yeah, and I mean, like we talked a little bit about like there's been a variance in episode length. I mean, the first episode I think was like about an hour. They put quite a bit of time and money into it. I mean, special effects. You can tell, you know. But even like the shorter episodes, I was like, oh man, that was only like 32 minutes. Like they really packed a lot in.
Yeah.
And I think you hit the nail on the head, Zach. I mean, like they are doing this sort of like episodic, like here's the task of the week, you know, A-team, whatever sort of thing. But they are weaving in enough of this, you know, general narrative, which is what they did last season, and it all kind of came together really well. So I trust them to do the same this year.
And I feel like they're doing a lot more world building, even if some of that has been done in other media. They're bringing it into this world and building like how this fits in with the other worlds that you guys know better from watching the different shows and whatever, but I don't. But at least we're getting some building here. So that's
I think that's my favorite aspect of the show. I think that's the thing that I like most about it, and the thing that makes it my favorite piece of like anything that Disney has introduced into Star Wars is that they're being conscious of what came before. And I didn't really necessarily feel like that was the case with a lot of the movies. Like it felt like they were just trying to like exist in their own universe. And as a result, like the world building just felt weird and confusing, and like we didn't know where we were or who these people were, what the relations were to other things that were happening. And here, like it just feels so connected to like immediately like what the world would look like after like episode 6. And you get to see all these different places and see how they are living in a post-Empire reality. And like it's just so much more fitting to that. Like it just feels like more like a puzzle piece fitting together than just like its own thing out in the ether.
Yeah, I think like the sequel trilogy is definitely disjointed in that sense because there are a number of things that just don't feel connected in the way you'd want them to. And here, I mean, if you haven't watched like Clone Wars and Rebels, I mean, you know, you don't have to necessarily.
Yeah, I haven't, and I still.
But it's little things like, you know, like they've got the transport cruiser, you know, that was in the first season, and then is now, you know, just used in this last episode. The old, you know, which is like based on a really old Star Wars toy that was just sort of a concept back in the day. Like that was in those shows, which those shows are, you know, canon, but a lot less people have seen them than have seen the movies, right? And then at the end of this episode, when we find, you know, Moff Gideon, he's on kind of like a light space cruiser. He's not on a Star Destroyer. And those, you know, until now have only been seen in the animation as well. So they're bringing a lot of like even just like physical, you know, pieces that were designed differently for these other properties. They're actually bringing them into the live action fold. Maybe a slightly different look, or they're cleaned up. But it's not even like bashing you over head with it. It's just like, oh yeah, this is another piece of Star Wars that fits in. It looks right. It feels right. And it's also from something previous. I mean, like the Death Troopers are from Rogue One. I don't know. There's just a whole bunch of stuff like that, and it doesn't feel heavy-handed. It just feels like it all slides in just how you would expect it to. I mean, even we'll get to it, but in the first episode, like Boba Fett's tattered armor, you were like, oh my gosh, that's Boba Fett's armor, but it looks like it's beat to shit, and we know that's not Boba Fett as soon as we see him, and I mean it all just sort of clicks right away, and that's really hard to do with those little details, unless you have a great amount of care.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's definitely an argument I think people sometimes make about Star Wars that is fair, which is that it really tries to play too hard on nostalgia and just like repeating a lot of the same elements over and over. But I don't think that's what's happening with this show. Like I think we get to see that stuff, but they're being meaningfully advanced here. Like we're actually seeing like how they actually fit into this reality and this situation where they're not just being thrown in to be there. It's not just like pure fan service.
That's the cameo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that sort of felt like there were definitely elements in the sequel trilogy that felt like that, where you had something that was just like exactly like it, you remember it, and it was like this is supposed to be a shot of nostalgia right to the arm, and I haven't really felt anything in that same way, through this. So it's a different approach to the story, and they have more time to kind of develop it. So I think that that's in their favor.
What are you thinking about The Mandalorian in general, Marie, as someone who's just getting into it?
Yeah, so you just binged it, right? You just watched season 1 recently, and you watched the all of season 2 in the last day or so, correct?
Yeah, exactly. I thought about going into it last year already because you guys had talked about it a lot, and then I missed the VOK episode anyway, so it's like no incentive to do that right away since I won't be able to talk about it with you guys. So a couple of weeks ago, I was like, okay, this is gonna happen again this year,
Let me
so
catch up.
I might as well, catch up on the first season.
Nice.
I really liked it. I've never been like a huge. I'm a fan of Star Wars, like of course, but like the everyday fan. I like it.
That's me.
I enjoy the universe. I enjoy the movies. I enjoy a lot of things, but I'm not deep into whatever. Like I haven't watched anything except the movies basically, and not even all of them in the recent ones. But so this was enjoyable.
You don't have to.
I kept no, it is. I kept picturing the Mandalorian as The Witcher. I mean, I did a big mashup in my head because he's like talking with like monosyllabic words, and it's just like the same kind of persona when you don't really know him. So it was I expected a different face.
Confirmed
the helmet.
Geralt is under the helmet. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Over in
it
my
was a bit
pal.
disappointing.
I think Pedro Pascal does a great job with the voice and whatnot. But yeah, like when he took the helmet off, it was a little like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. But
Right.
I mean, I knew he
he's
was
doing
under there, but like,
yeah,
It's funny how that works,
job,
right?
though.
Yeah, he is. But it's like you get this like mythic image of a person, like whenever they're masked like that, like you just don't think of them as a person necessarily. Like I don't know, like it feels like it's deflated slightly when you actually see their face.
Right.
It's like if you watched
probably the point.
the Carl Urban Dread movie where he never takes his helmet off the whole movie. And I know Carl Urban, I know what Carl Urban looks like, but I watched that movie and I still kind of don't really like imagine that it's Carl Urban under the helmet.
Right. Which is funny because that's the exact opposite of the first movie. Where was it? Who was it under it? Schwarzenegger?
With Stallone.
Stallone. One of those. Whoever it was, like, took the helmet off through the whole fucking movie, which is definitely not Dread. It's definitely not Dread. It would be like doing that with the Mandalorian, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of fans hated that.
And speaking of the helmets, in episode 3 we did get that reveal, which I mean, this is something we discussed on our podcast last season, and it kind of didn't make sense because we're like, we know there's a whole planet of Mandalorians, and they don't wear their helmets all the time, and like, so did they all get exterminated? Is this a new thing? Like, why is he like, I can't take the helmet off? And then it's explained, in like basically one line, like, oh, like you're one of those guys.
Right.
You're
the
like, oh, this is
spin-off.
perfect.
You're
Yeah,
the
this is great.
spin-off
This
group.
is great. You're an extremist. And he's like, wait, like he doesn't even know about any of this. So he's like kind of like sort of like the innocent cult member in a way.
Right.
Which is makes it a little like all the more adorable, I guess. But yeah, then in episode 4 we get to see him eating, how he eats with the helmet. I guess that helmet just sort of pops forward a little bit.
And Baby Yoda wants to see the face.
Yeah, Baby Yoda's like, Daddy? Speaking of which, so, I mean, this is going to cover all 4 episodes here, but much like Geralt in The Witcher, Mando is a terrible parent.
Right.
Not just because he's like, Baby Yoda goes with me everywhere into danger, and you're like, yeah, that's terrible. But we sort of knew that was going to happen. But he's actively like, are you hungry? Really? Oh, why are you eating this poor lady's eggs?
Right. Just
Stop eating the eggs, which was like a horrifically funny gag, which I thought was great. It was because it was kind of dark, but it's like Baby Yoda doing it, so it's cute. And some people were like absolutely outraged.
Mm-hmm.
They thought like Baby Yoda was evil.
Well, it probably doesn't help that they already showed pictures of the pop the what do you call it? Funko Pop version of him with the thing of eggs, looking at it hungry. Like you're making a toy out of it already, like of him murdering possibly
Legos and toys and stuff spoil stuff all the time, but I don't always see that.
Well, here's
not so much a spoiler, but it was like we released this as a toy right afterwards. Like, hey, look at this fun, cute moment where he, ate this woman's children.
Yeah, which is kind of it's adorable. I mean, I think it's supposed to be dark humor. It's supposed to.
Yeah, and here's the thing about it, right? This is all very intentional. So in that episode, episode 2, the way it opens is we get to see them leaving Tatooine, and they're accosted by these bandits. And like essentially, Mando makes a deal; he'll give them the jetpack if they let him live. And as soon as they have the jetpack, he kills them. And like this is the story and growth of Baby Yoda here. Is Baby Yoda is being taught that me and Mando are the only people that matter, and anyone else is just food. Basically, they're just people to be taken from. So like this is a clear character line that's being followed for Baby Yoda, and it's going down the dark path right now. So that's
a good point. Yeah.
Baby Yoda will take what Baby Yoda wants.
Meanwhile, he tried to let the baby deal with like explosive wire stuff in the back in this episode.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Really? Talk about marriage.
The open of this latest episode is he's just like, well, there's a little crawl space, and he's just like, okay, so take the blue cord and put it where the red cord went.
Does Baby Yoda really understand the child? If we want to be, does he understand him, or does he just sort of dog does? Like when you talk to a dog kind of gets your sense. But he doesn't fuck you're saying. And if you said to a dog, and you go, no, and he'd be like,
he doesn't have the grasp of language yet, but he gets.
He's
Here's the 4th, Craig. Well, so that's actually an interesting thing to talk about. So in this last episode, we kind of learned what the whole situation was with Baby Yoda, with like what they were experimenting with him on. So it seems like what they're trying to do is like use, and then we get the word here, M counts. So they're trying to like take his blood, use the midi-chlorians in his blood to make like force sensitive.
No, the M's.
Yes, the M's.
We're not going to call it midi-chlorians because that's like a 4-letter word.
It's a fraught word filled with implication. It's amazing.
That was great. So I feel like it's like they're trying to do like a force transplant. Is what it sounds like, like force bone marrow type of thing. Which I mean, so we saw these vats of it look like failed clones, which is reminiscent of Rise of Skywalker, right?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of like there's spoilers for that, but who cares? Like all the like Snoke babies.
Yeah. So it looks like this is maybe something, which is kind of weird because you would have thought if the Emperor survived, he would have already sort of had this plan going somehow, but I guess he's just like hopping from like
Well,
big
here's
body to
actually
shitty body, or what is he doing?
Well, here's what I find interesting. That brings up a good point that I'm actually very intrigued by in this show is like, who are Moff Gideon and
Right.
these people? Like, what are their intentions? And it seems to me, especially based on episode 3, where we have the Imperial officer in that ship they were attacking, he's like a very like fanatical loyalist, and we see that
Right.
again in episode 4 with the guys like desperately trying to like destroy the terminal before they get killed. Like there's a certain like faction within this Imperial remnant that's working towards something, and they're more zealous and more committed than the average soldier. So like, who are they? What is their plan? I think there's something building there that's intriguing, and they might not be like working for the Emperor or for any other like specific like authority. They're on their own.
Yeah, it could be something else entirely.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by that, and I'm curious to see where that goes from here.
And I mean, he's got the Darksaber for whatever reason. So
yeah, so why do you think that? I mean, it could just be my understanding. So just to give a little lore context, like what the Darksaber is and why someone like Bo-Katan that we met in episode 3 wants it. So she wants it because it's a symbol of like Mandalorian authority. So she can use that to then go and reclaim the planet Mandalore and to rebuild their society. Like that's why she wants it. So I think the only reason why Moff Gideon would want it is because it's like a way to hold, like it's a way to like deny that power to Mandalorians so they don't become a threat to the Empire. Like it's just a way of the Empire like asserting its authority over one of these.
So they talked about like what was it, a purge or something like that. Like
yes,
there seems to have been some sort of systematic decimation on Mandalore because they weren't going to fall in line. So like the planet, I mean, at one point didn't she say something like, it's unlivable or something?
Yeah, that it's uninhabitable right now.
And she's like, no, it's fine. But yeah, so it seems like
they just killed people.
They probably killed off most of the Mandalorians and had some issues. And I had to explain this to one of the doctors at work because he was like, "What is with that thing? Why do they care?"
Well,
and
that's
like,
the thing.
The Darksaber was the first Mandalorian who became a Jedi. That was his lightsaber. That was the lightsaber he built. So it's very unique. It's got like kind of a straight blade. It's black. And then it's become, like as Zach said, like a historical artifact that kind of people fight over. You know, if you've got the Darksaber, you can kind of take control.
Yeah, it's like the Iron Throne in a way. It's like the symbol of your authority.
I think this does bring up a really interesting question, though, which is that, you guys had said you were really happy with how they're fitting the lore in with this show, but I'm wondering how well they're doing it for those who don't know the lore already and how well it makes sense. Because like that's always a question with any, linked media kind of thing is that, like, Marie, have you watched any of these shows or read any of the books? You said no, right? Like, are you getting all that's going on? Like, I get that we know these people from somewhere and it doesn't matter, but there are little things like when you talk about the Darksaber or whatever, where I'm totally lost and I have no idea what you're talking about. And I feel like they should have explained that better.
Right, but I think, it's show don't tell, right? I think that it's designed that way so that for people that don't know, for people that know the lore, there's all these little bits that are put in. That's really great.
Most of them I don't mind, but some of them are going.
It's meant to pique your curiosity. I mean, I've got people that are like, well, I went through the Wikipedia article now, or if you go onto the website, they have bits about this. If you watch the behind the scenes, like the making of Mandalorian from season 1, they explain some of this. So I think they're trying to push people who don't know what this stuff is, if they're interested, to kind of start looking at some of the other stuff. I mean, like I said, I had a doctor who's like, in his 50s be like, "Hey Adam, should I watch the Clone Wars?" Like, so, I mean, I think that's intentional.
Yeah, it's two different kinds of fans, right? Like it's like the difference between like a person who read the A Song of Ice and Fire books watching Game of Thrones and just a pure watcher. Like the experience is different, and there are things that you're not going to get as just a pure show watcher. Whereas as a book reader, you're like the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the screen meme when like something comes up that's interesting.
But eventually they'll reveal it to you. Eventually they'll explain why why this stuff.
For most of the stuff, I don't feel left out, especially for the cameo stuff. But for some of the major bits, I do feel like I'm like,
it's too
you're
shrouded
leaving
in
me
secrecy,
behind. You're leaving me behind instead of making me want to go. Like, I don't feel like I ever should have to watch another show to understand the one I'm watching now. And I feel like at times this is making me feel like I do.
Well, I don't think you have to, because I think eventually they will do that. I think if you want to know now, you can go watch that stuff. But like I said, last season it was like, man, these episodes are cool, but what's happening? Like, where is this all going? And then it all sort of came together. So I think that's the same thing we're going to see this year.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the difference with the Song of Ice and Fire stuff is that you have a universe that is much more complicated in a sense, with different like shows, different movies, books, even, and like
Right.
it's straightforward with the A Song of Ice and Fire. You've got the books and you've got the show, and that's it.
Well, you got the
But
World Book, you got the Fire and
yeah,
Blood.
but
But
no, yeah,
Just a
okay, but
million characters.
yeah, you
Right.
get you get my point though, right? You don't have
Yeah.
to
Watch
go
2 other
through the
TV
Wikipedia
shows and 3
page to
books and
understand. Yeah, exactly, to understand the whole chronology and where is this happening, when is this happening. I don't feel left out by the stuff that I haven't seen. I do feel like maybe I would be interested to watch them in the same way that watching Star Trek Discovery makes me want to watch the rest of the franchise. But it's
Yeah.
still very enjoyable by itself, I think.
Yeah.
A better comparison
I
might be
think that's what they're doing.
a better comparison might be the MCU, where like if you're
Right.
a comic book fan, there's all kinds of stuff that they're seeding in there that you're picking up on that are cool. But you're still, if you're just like a fan of the movies, you're still enjoying the ride, right? Like you're still
Yeah.
enjoying the experience, and hopefully they will like explain the stuff if it's relevant to the plot in a meaningful way. But like I don't think they need to like explain like every little like detail they drop to like
Right.
make the fans of that other
Mhm.
material happy.
Yeah, because there'll always be a BuzzFeed article, or you can always go look into
Right.
it and go, oh, that's what that was. Like some stuff is not core to the plot, and just is what it is. But I do think the major stuff that we're going to find out eventually, I think they want you being like, well, what's happening? Because even those of us that like know like all the Star Wars lore are still kind of like, well, here's what I think might be happening, but then like it could be way wrong.
Yeah, because they're picking and choosing what they want to do with some of this material, and like they're going to change some things and maybe do things we don't expect there. Like for me, like it was really interesting back in season 1 with the way they introduced Mandalorians as like this weird cult that like don't ever take their helmets off, and like they're this like secretive society. Like that's not how they were presented in the Clone Wars and that stuff. So it's
and
cool
that was
to see
confusing
here.
to everyone, right? I mean, that wasn't
Yeah.
like anyone had like the inside track on that until just
Right. They reconciled that in episode 3, yeah, to put it all together there. So that was cool to see like how it all connects.
11 episodes in, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not something they needed to explain, I don't think, until.
No, that's fine.
I think I mean that's what I like. I like the long form. I like it is weird how well they're balancing kind of the like, okay, we got to go take down this small Imperial base, which ends up being a lab that's key to our narrative, with weaving in the bits of the story and moving forward, where
Let's
Baby
kill the
Yoda's going,
worm.
where Mando's going. I think they're doing a pretty good job with it.
And then you
a
get
lot
one
of shows
episode,
can't do that.
and you have one episode where you're killing a worm, and another one with lots of spiders that freak out Marie.
Yeah, so the spider episode, I mean, I think
Awful.
some people.
That was the best one they did.
I think some people thought it was like the most boring episode, and I was like, I thought that. I mean, it was.
I thought that was the most exciting of them all. That was scary.
Yeah, it was nonstop.
Yeah, I liked it.
Not
I loved
not
it.
a lot happened, but it was. We're in space. We got X-wings. We crash. There's a pretty consistent narrative momentum the whole time. Like it just didn't stop. And that poor ship,
it
man.
was
I just
great.
paid $350 to get that ship.
Right.
They better not break that ship, and thankfully they repaired it.
Oh, you bought that? There's a ship model you can buy.
There's not really, but they're
I love merch.
So Hasbro has they make the action figures and all that, right?
Right.
And so they have like sort of a new model they've done where they do kind of like premium stuff, like almost like Kickstarter. So like you have to pay up front before they make it and all that. So yeah, I was like, so like you could get the Razer Crest that was going to be like one of the biggest toy vehicles they've ever made. And it's like, but you have to pay $350 up front. And you don't get it until like the end of next year.
And then
maybe as soon as
there's no guarantee.
No, you get it. I mean,
with like Kickstarters, you never know.
No, but this is like this is like a $1 billion company. So once they reach a certain funding, you had to have X amount of supporters. I think they needed like 6,000 people, and they got like 25,000.
Of course they did. Well, you know what I wonder is Was
But
anyone paying
it was one of those
attention?
things where as soon as the campaign finished, like the day after the campaign finished, I think, like this next episode aired where the ship got beat to hell, and people were like, "What the hell?"
Well, you know what I was wondering
Is
is,
he about to lose the ship?
did people pay attention? Were there slight differences between the different variations of the ship as they fixed it? Because I was thinking that would be great for merchandise.
Damaged model ship.
It's been
merch.
destroyed twice now. You can have merchandise. You have like
I
5
love
different
it.
versions you can sell. The
I
broken
love it.
one, the newly fixed
That's
one,
how
the
you do
newly
it.
broken one, the newly fixed one. Like,
Well, this one, I mean, like not to go too far off, but if you can go look on the website and it has like all these in-depth, the model and all the stuff it comes with. It's got tons of like panels that break away and stuff because it's supposed to be like in the first season when the Jawas was like take it apart, so you can like basically like strip it down. And, yeah, it's like it's extremely intricate.
They're making so much money off this show. It's ridiculous.
And the only way that you can get a Baby Yoda figure in this scale at the moment is with this ship, I think. That has like the little floating
the ball
floating carrier. Yeah, you can't get that any other way. Like, so they do all these little things to get people, and there are people that are like, I'm buying 5 of them, and you're just like, oh my gosh. It's a crazy world, but it is interesting. Remember the first season when like we had no idea that Baby Yoda was going to exist because there was no merch.
Right,
like,
they waited on the merch. They waited because they didn't want to ruin the surprise.
Any hint of merch, right? And people were like, "Oh my gosh, they're going to lose so much money with this holiday season." And oh my gosh, like Baby Yoda's so hot. You got people on Etsy making the Baby Yoda stuff, and they're like, "No, you're going to be sick of Baby Yoda merch at some point."
Of course.
And it's it's selling, I guess. So
we even have them eating.
Disney knows what they're doing.
Just get into this episode too. We were talking about a bit. My favorite gag so far throughout the show is like these 2 or 3 X-wing pilots that are patrolling the entire galaxy.
Yeah.
They have this gigantic jurisdiction they're responsible for.
They're like, if we ever see you back around, it's amazing that like he's like, so this Razer Crest that we just saw. I didn't say anything about a Razer Crest. You're crazy, Let me see your logs. And we're like, number one, you have no authority here. Number one, you're just one dude out in the middle of nowhere. Like, basically like, what's his name? Carl Weathers could just be like, yeah, go screw yourself, right? And then he's like, yeah, we're willing to help the Republic out if you ever come back around here again. Just like, what is this guy's authority? He's basically on the same level as Mando in this region, right? Like, he's just some dude that shows up.
Yeah, he's like de facto leader of this location, I guess now.
I mean the X-wing pilot.
Oh, those guys, yeah.
Carl Weathers is sort of like kind of like the town mayor or something now. But yeah, it's like he shows up, he's like, well, I've got an orange jumpsuit, so hella official. And
I get my own action figure. That's all that matters.
Yeah, so some people, I've seen one thing from this episode I didn't expect is there was like a lot of Cara Dune hate, and people were like, well, good, we never have to see her again. They've like written her out, which I didn't really understand that. But
I wonder if some of that is like political stuff.
I hadn't heard anything about that. I mean, but I thought maybe they just didn't like it because she's like a wrestling person and not an actress, and they were like, I don't know. I've enjoyed the character, so.
I mean, I think that's something I enjoy about the show is like just the casting is all over the place and crazy, and I just think it makes it more fun to have like all these different people from different things in it. Yeah, Starbuck.
When I was like, oh, you're NA?
Yeah.
Oh, did you lose anyone?
Yeah.
I'm like, the whole planet blew up, dude.
Right.
She's like, I lost everyone. Like,
I'm gonna say,
Yeah.
We were talking about Baby Yoda being evil.
Yeah, okay, so
the big boss villain. He's the boss villain.
Where are we going? Oh yeah. So yeah, I definitely think that there's a message here sort of that perhaps unintentionally, Mando is kind of bringing Baby Yoda down this path, and we'll see hopefully when he meets up with the Jedi or meets up with Ahsoka, or maybe there's a reveal of like, hey, you fucking up. Your parenting is shit.
The thing though is you don't need a Jedi to do that. You just need someone to be like, wait, hold on, what are you doing?
Right. Any mom could.
The Jedi are not like the best idea for parents, which and I mean
this is also true, yes.
Not a Jedi or whatever, but I do think like his quest is like he's like, I'm looking for the Jedi to bring this person back. So I think that's maybe where it would come to a head of like, well, hold on a second, what have you been doing?
Chris, you're assuming that's ever going to happen. We may go all the way to the end, and the grand finale will be evil Baby Yoda has to get taken down by the Mandalorian.
100 years later, when he's teen Baby Yoda. I mean,
Yeah, right.
Like that whole.
But when he
age,
becomes the big boss villain,
the age
after
thing
all that
is,
he's learned,
the main problem, I think. So, what can you do? But I don't. Yeah, I don't think like Baby Yoda is gonna like start murdering people left and right necessarily.
we could have a
But
time jump.
it's definitely, yeah. And so I do think that what Baby Yoda is or where he's from is kind of important. We'll get that eventually. Like, part of me is wondering if he is literally like a Yoda clone, with what we saw in this episode, and
Right.
I
Using
don't
his
know.
DNA
Yeah,
and stuff.
with everyone calling him Baby Yoda, it took me a little while to figure out when this was happening, and
Right,
that
right.
he
Is it
isn't
really Baby Yoda?
actually Baby
Right,
Yoda.
right. So,
Right.
so watching the first episode, and then at the very end, it's like, oh my gosh, there's this Baby Yoda thing, because we don't know what Yoda's species is called, and he looks just like Yoda, and that just sort of stuck. But like Disney has been very careful to be like, it's the child.
The
It's
child.
like they never reference Yoda at all.
No.
And that for I'm sure that's
Actually, I
there's
think in
good
some of the
reason,
merchandise
but
they've started calling him the child and then like parentheses Baby Yoda or something like that.
some websites will, like some resellers I've noticed will, but um,
For
I
me,
don't know.
one of the weird things is, and I mean, I guess it's explained by how huge the universe is, but a lot of the things that we know about the Jedi, about Yoda, actually, about the Empire, seems to be completely like no one knows about them, and it feels like the Empire is was not so long ago, but still, um, um, it's like it's in these people's lifetimes.
Right,
So
but what
it feels like they should know more about how it went down, and how it
Yeah,
started.
so
I mean,
that's
do they
Because
have regular news broadcasts? Like, how would your average person
well,
like
know
I
that
don't know,
Yoda
but like
was
the Jedi,
the
for instance,
Jedi
it's
were
like,
huge. They had a giant temple on
yeah.
Coruscant,
Yeah.
and there were thousands of them. And so
And I
that's
mean, this was
always one of the
40
things that
years
never
ago or
made
50
sense.
years ago. They should, like, I don't know, but it's not three generations. It's like it should be still in their memory, as to who these guys were. It feels weird that it isn't.
But it's like if you lived in North Korea, you wouldn't. I mean, I like
Right. So
right, exactly.
what
so
did
here's
Bina
what I'll
post
say. I
recently
don't.
that like Gone with the Wind is like one of the most popular American books in North Korea, and they think
Right.
it's like a great take on like modern capitalism and,
Right.
and all this. And I'm just like, like you don't know any better because there was a systematic purge of Jedi temples and artifacts and information. I mean, some live, and we've seen like kind of in our world how this can work. The Jedi and first Jedi were shit.
Here's what it is, as we learned about in episode 3 of this season. They're very sheltered. Like they have their own version of reality. Season where like she only knows about Jedi as being like an ancient historical thing. Alex,
Yeah,
That the
maybe.
rest
I
of
don't
us
know. I mean,
don't
like,
care
because
about.
the whole rumor that like Pedro Pascal was going to leave in the middle of the season and
Right.
they'd have a new character or something, and I was like, wait, what? Like, and the weird thing is like Disney doesn't like even comment on any of this shit.
Right.
Like, I mean, like, I understand it'd be weird to be like, well, our character's not going to get killed off in this movie or something, but like when it's the Mandalorian, you're going to be like, yeah, the Mandalorian's not going anywhere, guys. Sort of like a conspiracy theory thing, but what it really is just like people want news for stuff, and you see this with Game of Thrones, and it's like every article is like, Winds of Winter release date could change the fate of this character. Winds of Winter
Yeah,
release date is
those
going
are
to
the
be
best.
oh god, I
significant
hate
for it.
that. I hate
Like,
that.
and so they're
that.
just trying to spin the yarn into gold by saying like
Right.
breaking news, and they do it for video games, they do it for movies, they do it for anything where there's no news. They suddenly every week they've got like a title and it says breaking news, and they put out a blurb like with some complete bullshit thing that like never comes to pass, and they just talk about it and get views. And it's just I mean, it's just people being like, well, hey, what if Baby Yoda like turned blue? I think, a source is telling me that Baby Yoda eventually turns blue as the more dark side he gets, and and I could just go on for 10 minutes about that, right? But then it never happens, and no one cares, and no one ever checks, and it doesn't matter. Like it's, I don't know. It pays, I guess, to be a bullshit artist. because people watch and then they go, "Oh man, I heard Baby Yoda's turning blue. Did you hear about that?" You're like, "Okay, didn't hear about that. Just watch the show."
What did you guys think of? What did you guys think of the big worm battle in the first episode?
That's what I was about to say. Is what do you think of the Crate Dragon? Was the Crate Dragon like a little too big, or I mean, it was pretty darn cool, but
Yeah, it looked great to me.
I did not know it was going to be that big. I'm gonna tell
Made
you.
it made it definitely a scary opponent, and it was cool to see it defeated.
And
Yeah,
we haven't even mentioned Timothy Oliphant's Marshall in his Boba Fett armor. Oh well, I'll just marshal this town where the sand shark comes through.
No.
And I mean, that's a weird thing where that episode I thought was going to be about, okay, we find this Boba Fett armor. It's not really a Mandalorian. Now this is going to be the conflict. And then suddenly they're like, oh, sand shark. And I'm like, oh, that's just a weird thing. No, that's like the whole crux of the episode now. And you got to get the sand people together. And you got, so it was like it turned on a dime there pretty effectively.
Yeah, it's one of those, the series seems to be like, okay, we're moving the story along. And now we're going to get detoured into like, our quest of the episode, our side quest.
Yeah,
like a video game with side quests.
I love the side quest, man. It's great. And then at the end of that episode, we actually see who we assume is Boba Fett. Now just sort of in a robe, kind of.
Do you think it's really Boba Fett?
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't know who else it would be because it's what's his name's Django's actor. It's the guy that played all the clones and stuff.
Well, it could be any of the other clones.
Well, no, because the clones age much quicker. So, like, any clones that were left at this point would be, like way old and gray. And he just looks like, like he's, like, in his 50s, 40s, 50s, whatever, So, I would assume it's Boba Fett. Maybe it's not, but, I mean...
I'm certain it's Boba Fett.
Yeah, we have Boba Fett's armor, so somehow he got out of the Sarlacc, which, like, there's been... numerous attempts over the years to like explain how he got out and kept
going.
Maybe
the armor protected him.
Yeah, I mean, Mandalorian armor seems to be pretty decent. And then we've got it's the same planet. We've got the same actor who should be playing Boba Fett. I'm sure it will come up eventually, but
when you look for Boba Fett on Google, you just even Wikipedia writes that he appears in The Mandalorian, so I think it's pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, in world they didn't say that, but yeah. I mean, I don't know who else it would be. Basically, it'd be very weird if it was someone else.
This is like R plus L equals J level of confirmed for me.
Yeah. Exactly. It's just like Rex was in the Battle of Endor. I mean, we all know that's true. So.
What else is there to talk about with Mando?
Let's see. I'm trying to think. The second episode was
spiders.
What was that? Oh, that was the spiders. The third episode was so quick, but
one thing about the spiders, did you notice that Baby Yoda actually set it off by eating the baby egg?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
delicious.
The spiders came at them because
the spiders are like, what the heck?
Right, and they all became
Baby Yoda was the aggressor.
Right.
Baby Yoda, delicious spider snacks.
I'm telling you, Sith Lord Baby Yoda inbound.
Yeah.
Look, Baby Yoda is hungry. He's a growing boy, okay? He will steal your cookies. He will eat your spider.
He'll eat your babies. He'll eat your fetuses.
I was like, oh my gosh, like they had a school, and I'm like, Baby Yoda's going to school.
I know, right?
And then like suddenly he's like, give me your cookies, boy. And the kid's like,
I thought he was gonna throw. I was worried he was gonna throw the kid across the room, like.
Yeah.
Just casually force grabbing the cookies. And
that scene was so funny to me. That just randomly putting Baby Yoda in a school, just like Baby Yoda who's like a baby.
Right.
And all these kids are like 12.
It's so weird, but it was so funny.
It seemed as off as like having him move the red and the blue, like wires. It's like he doesn't understand what the fuck she's saying. What is he doing in school?
Trying, you don't know. He understands something.
Of course, there's the dissonant element that Baby Yoda is 50 also. It's like, when is Baby Yoda going to get older? How long is it going to take for Baby Yoda to not be a baby?
Yeah, that is, and I said this the first season, that's one of the things I didn't like. It doesn't make any sense to have a species that's like, well, it takes them 100 years to like, be self-sufficient. You're like, well, they would just die. Like, that species would not exist. So I don't
Maybe.
know, but I don't know. Do you think we're ever gonna like find like the Yoda planet? Kind of weird that we don't really know anything about them.
I'm not sure like where that plot line is going. Like I'm half and half. Actually, I'm half and half. It's actually going to lead to something, or that it's going to just end up being like a red herring that leads to something. Like it's going to be like a dead end that they have to then adjust what they're going to do. I feel.
We're assuming,
I'm
we're
not sure I
assuming that
want to like
do
know.
we?
But
Are there? You guys know more about the world than I do. Are there other Yodas in the universe?
there's one
Yes.
other confirmed.
So if there's only one or two or three that we know of, is it possible they're like a genetically created species that to be force whatever? Like
Potentially.
you know,
Well,
maybe
so
the Jedi created him, or
it's
you
a
know?
little unclear what's canon and what's not, but like with what we sort of know, like that species has been around for a really long time, like thousands.
Yeah.
So
And
I
they
don't
live a
know.
long time.
Yeah.
That's all we really know is that like, and I mean, because they established like how old Yoda was. That sort of was it. But I think it's in Phantom Menace. You have Yaddle, who's like the female Yoda, and like that's the only other one we see. And we like, other than like blurbs that have been written for official books or documents or whatever, like we don't really know anything other than like, hey, their species lives a long time, and I mean that's about it. So and they tend to be.
And do we really know that in world like canon?
Well, I mean, because Yoda.
Because Yoda, yeah.
Super old. They're all super old. So
And clearly they're taking that with the baby Yoda being 50 and a baby thing. Like they're clearly like thinking that's a super long-lived species.
I think they did that as they wanted the shock value of you. They wanted the reveal in episode 1 in the first season of he's looking for a 50-year-old, and then you're like, it's a baby, because you would never expect that, which is a good reveal, sure, but it just sort of kind of doesn't hold up.
It doesn't really. Like if you like did the math, like if Baby Yoda matured at the same rate as a human and was a baby at 50, Baby Yoda wouldn't be like a teenager until they're like 500 or more. Yeah. So it's like it's weird. Yeah.
If they had said he was 10 years old or something, then
well, is he a baby or maybe he's 4? You know, we don't really know.
I mean, he's walking around.
In fact, he's not
so
a baby. He's a child. He's a child.
Yeah, he's more like
acts like a baby or a toddler. Yeah, I don't know. Can't speak yet.
He is capable of getting his own food. He can forage. Babies can't do that. He's on solid foods.
At least with powers, but
right. So, yeah.
Do you guys think that we'll like Baby Yoda less when they can talk?
I don't think Baby Yoda's gonna talk.
Like never in the history of the show.
Well, I mean, unless we have a time jump, I mean he's going to age. I mean, he'll age the equivalent of a month in the next 7 seasons. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there'd have to be.
Like, how much language does a kid pick up? You've had kids, Adam. Like, how much language does a kid pick up in a month? You know,
right? But I mean, I think that with him being as old as he is, like, there should be more awareness than you would expect from, like an itty bitty child like that. But like language development could be a physical thing. Like just not being able to actually talk might take longer. So I get that. I don't really want to hear Baby Yoda speak because it's like, is Baby Yoda gonna speak in that weird way?
I know.
Where would Baby Yoda learn to speak that way? Because no one else around them speaks that way.
The more Yoda speak you have is just weird. I just watched the holiday special and he just talks.
Hungry I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, food. Give me food. Yeah.
Food I want.
No, he's just like, he's just gonna talk normal, and then he's gonna get to the Yoda planet, and they all talk like Yoda, and they're gonna be like, rejected.
That'd be so awesome.
Yeah. So where do you guys think this is going? I mean, I know, spoilers, sort of, because we know a little bit about casting. Like, I didn't realize Katie Sackhoff was in this as Bo-Katan.
Well, so I'll just say Katie Sackhoff voices Bo-Katan in Clone Wars and Rebels, so it kind of makes
which is awesome.
Does she look like that though? Like, do we ever see the character?
Yeah, she looks the same basically. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some people are confused.
So they modeled it after her. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people are confused because this is like 40 years later from that, and she looks kind of the same. So she hasn't really aged much, but I don't know. She
in like
well.
Clone Wars stuff, she's supposed to be kind of like she's like the young princess, basically. She's like maybe a teenager, early 20s, or whatever. And this is
45-year-old.
Yeah,
Plus, when you have a helmet on all the time,
she
it's
should
good
be
for your
like
skin.
mid-40s right about now, I think.
Keeping the helmet on is good for the
early
complexion.
40s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But like people are confused because it's like, well, Anakin or Obi-Wan was this age, and then when you get to A New Hope, Obi-Wan looks like he's 90. I'm like,
Well,
like,
Tatooine is not good for the skin.
yeah, and they
Right.
aged him up, and they wanted, it's all just narrative choices.
It's whatever. Yeah, it's not a big deal.
I mean, so do you understand why Bo-Katan is kind of significant in any way? I mean, like David, Marie, do you
I
guys
mean, I
understand?
got a little bit that she's like kind of planning to be the head of,
Yeah.
of whatever Mandalorian, the original Mandalorian strain that they've spun
Yeah.
off of.
Yeah, the
But that's all
Mandalorian,
I
the
really
planet, the Mandalorian. They have various clans, and like her clan was basically the ruling clan. And just
That part
like
is-
background is her sister was like the queen of Mandalore, basically like during the Republic, and when like Mandalore was, they had kind of moved away from being warriors so much and more to like a peaceful planet. And then like Obi-Wan falls in love with her. And,
Yeah. And by the way, her sister totally fucking Obi-Wan.
yeah.
Oh, nice.
If you've never
I might
watched
be
the
back- I
Clone
might
Wars,
be
there's a
back.
whole bunch of good stuff in there. But
I need to watch
also,
that.
it's like 100 episodes of stuff to watch. I would recommend it. I've seen them all. I think they're great. But there are some episodes where you're like, oh, this is just for the kids, But they do a lot of good work, especially with developing characters, Obi-Wan and Anakin, and of course Ahsoka, comes from that, which I believe we'll be seeing her soon, maybe next episode possibly, based on some stuff. So I'm sure if you don't want to watch the entire series of the Clone Wars, you could probably find a list somewhere online that's like, here's the essential episodes, or here's the episodes you can skip, or something, if
Yeah.
you want to kind of get the basics of that. But
I don't really think you need to, though. I really think
you don't need to.
they'll
No.
be conscious
The
of
whole
that.
thing is enjoyable.
Yeah,
No, I
yeah.
mean, I just think on its own, I think it's a good series. It adds a lot to the prequels. So
All right.
Absolutely.
all right. So
Yeah. Okay.
do we have
I
anything
think
else?
No, don't think so.
Yeah. So this has been the first half of The Mandalorian season 2, and we look forward to the next 4 episodes, and we'll probably catch up after the end of that when Baby Yoda rules the Empire, and we'll see you all then.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye
Well,
bye.
thank you.